Get ready to take a flamethrower to the official narrative and learn what the elites don't want you to know. You're listening to The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here, episode 2690 of The Tom Woods Show. It's our old friend Spike Cohen, whom you know, I hope, in multiple contexts. I mean, he's an entrepreneur. He's a smacker down of bad guys. He's a winner of debates. He was the vice presidential candidate of the Libertarian Party back in the sorry year of 2020. I say sorry year of 2020 because, let's face it, we all had a pretty sorry year, 2020. So we all look back in 2020 and think, oh gosh, don't remind me. But Spike was out there getting the word out. Every time there's something going on one of these social media platforms and people are arguing, whenever Spike jumps in, we're all secretly applauding because we know here comes the smackdown. But Spike is also founder and president of something called You Are the Power. And I want to spend a little time talking about that today because you may have noticed it's not just my show. There are a lot of shows of our variety that tend to be a little doom and gloom. And there's good reason for that because there is a lot of doom going on in the world. But you can't live on doom alone. We also need some hope. We need a diet that includes a good helping of hope. And Spike is here to give that to us today. He is here to be a beacon of light by giving us examples of good things happening in the world, of justice prevailing in cases of injustice. So, Spike, you have a bit of a mission here today to be a pattern interrupt here in the Tom Woods Show.
Well, I'm happy to do that. If anything I can do today to provide a small ray of sunshine into the landscape of the libertarian doom porn in front of us, then I hope to be able to do that. Thanks again for having me on, man.
Well, my pleasure. Spike Ray of Sunshine Cohen is how he'll be known from now on. So let's talk about, first of all, one of the key questions that occupies libertarians from a strategic and a moral standpoint. And that is, what is the role of politics, or what should it be in our lives? Now, I don't mean should politics be minimized. Yes, of course, right. But I mean in advancing our ideas, what is the role of running for office in that, given that politics turns out very often to be so frustrating that it doesn't generate the results that you want, and yet you pour enormous resources in terms of time and treasure into it. Have we gotten to a point where we have to just write politics off and just try other things? I think you are uniquely positioned to consider this question, given that you have run for office, but you also have, with You Are the Power, something that is kind of extra political, that is to say, outside the political realm, that helps people fight back against injustices. So where do you come down on this? And is your perspective on it any different from what it was, let's say, back in 2020?
I don't know that my perspective has changed, but my position in what I'm doing has obviously changed. I would say this. I think politics plays a role in the fight for liberty. I don't think we should be leaving anything on the table. I'm very much a dragnet, all of the above approach type of person when it comes to this stuff. But I also think that what happens with politics, with electoral politics, is because it is so resource intensive, because it feeds into our egos, we're putting ourselves out there. It's not just our principles, it's ourselves as individuals we put out, ourselves as candidates, ourselves as our party and so forth, or our movement within a party or whatever else. It feeds into a thing that actually ends up being our undoing. And we see this all the time. It's the conflict machine that is electoral politics. It's why democracy has so much conflict built into it. So, like, for example, if you and I, Tom, are running for, mayor, we live in the same town and we're running for mayor of Liberty Town. Okay. Now, you and I agree like 99% of the time. Let's say we agree 99.5% of the time, Tom Woods and I agree on any given issue, but we're both running for the same office. In order for us to be able to effectively run for office and get someone to vote for me instead of you, or vice versa, you instead of me, not only do we have to focus on that 0.5% of things that we disagree on, but we have to make it clear that that 0.5% actually matters enough to vote for me over you, or vice versa. Now, we may one time be able, or a few times be able to have a congenial race where you and I are friends and we say, oh, my good friend Tom, he's right 99.5% of the time. But on this crucial 0.5%, he's too wrong. Libertyville cannot, or Liberty Town, whatever I call it, Libertyville cannot afford 4 more years of Tom Woods. And so they need Spike Cohen. We need to be right on that 0.5% of things. Over time, cumulatively, not only is that 0.5% going to become a bigger dividing line between us and our supporters and one another, but that 0.5% is going to grow. We're going to agree less and less, and that rift is going to grow more and more. Politics invites us to collectivize ourselves and everyone else before we can actually try to accomplish anything. And that's why we as libertarians, that's one of the many reasons we don't like using government to accomplish things. It's also a reason why that can't be our main focus as libertarians. We end up engaging in the very behavior that, we don't like, that we see in government. So I think it should be there. I think we should have people running for office. I think we should have people trying to make the other parties more libertarian or as libertarian as possible. And I think a lot of that gets decided by where are you best positioned. If you're from a political family, or if you know a bunch of people that are in office in your area, well, then that's probably a good place for you to go. But I also think that there's all these other places where we can make a headway towards liberty that are every bit as effective or more effective, are less resource intensive, and don't feed into the very thing that we don't like. I mean, your show is an example of that. There are many people out there that are spreading liberty through activism, through education, and all sorts of other means. You were the power, and I know we'll get more into it in a bit. You were the power is the way that I've found to help spread liberty by actually helping the people who need help now, inviting people to join us as a movement, and as we're doing so, exposing them to the underlying principles behind why we're doing what we're doing.
Now, I myself have said a number of times that unfortunately, most people are not spending their time reading books on political theory. So they get their political ideas basically from the media, and it's from the media covering the various candidates. And so the candidates represent, for most people, the range of opinion that they choose from. And so my concern has been, if we are absent from the political process, I understand why that brings a certain satisfaction to people, but it's what it means in practice is that nobody ever hears what we have to say, because they're not, most people are not. I'd love to live in a world where most people are attending lectures on the ideas that you and I have, but they're just not. They're going to find out about them, if they're going to find out about them at all, in the context of political races. I wish it weren't so, but I'm afraid it is. So by making ourselves absent from that, it's not, I think the results are going to be disappointing. But at the same time, I do understand that we can spend inordinate amounts of money and time on things like that don't bear a lot of fruit. For example, when Ron Paul started his homeschool curriculum, it occurred to a lot of us that when you look at some of the DC think tanks and not even just the think tanks. Think about like the political action committees and the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that have been spent on them to elect people who haven't really done a whole lot. Imagine if the tiniest fraction of that had been dedicated to creating a homeschool curriculum, where people can learn the history of liberty and have a fighting chance of being exposed to both the mainstream view and an alternative view. What a tremendous thing that would have been, as opposed to just throwing a lot of it out the window, which is what wound up happening. So we have to consider both. We have to balance both sides, and it really is a matter of, what are you better at? What brings you more satisfaction? Where are your talents best used? Now, you yourself here, I would think that starting an organization from scratch would be it would seem overwhelming. Like it would seem like that is, it's just not doable. All the things you have to do, and then you have to publicize its existence, and you have to raise money for it. It just sounds exhausting, but yet something compelled you to do it. So was there some outrage in the world that made you say, doggone it, I have got to start something to help fight against things like this, or what was the origin of it?
Well, starting organizations is what I've always done. Like I when I was 17 years old, I made my first company. And it was a website design company. And that's always been how I've approached things. If I saw something that I thought needed to be changed or an opportunity for me or whatever, I create something because like many libertarians, I can easily pick apart what someone else has done and look at all the things that I would have done differently. And instead of just sitting there and critiquing them, I just make it myself. So looking at the liberty movement, I saw a lot of different elements that we need for success, but they weren't just lining up. And that came really to the forefront during the campaign. I traveled to, I think, close to 40 states during the campaign. And I met all these activists who were putting together these different events that I was speaking at, because we relied a lot at the local level, local Libertarian Party members, local activists, and so forth. They put together these events, and they were super excited because they're in the middle of the campaign. They're making sure we're getting on the ballot. They're fighting for these achievable, feasible goals, right? Get on the ballot, successfully have X number of events with X number of people attending. So they have these attainable goals that they're working towards together, and they're super excited. And they kept saying, man, I wish we could do this all year long and do it towards an effort that we know isn't going to ultimately lose. And so I saw that, and I saw people just generally complaining, why aren't libertarians able to get our ideas out in a way that connects with people? How come when we share our ideas, people just get glazed over, their eyes glaze over and they aren't really listening? But then the other thing happening, and this was the missing piece that really locked it in, people started coming out to my events to tell me about things that their government was doing to them, usually like at the local level, the municipal level, the town level, the county level, maybe the state level. A lot of it had to do with COVID restrictions, but a lot of it didn't. And they were just coming because someone was running for office and they said, oh, my city council is trying to take my home, or, the CPS agencies are trying to take my children because I gave them ivermectin or whatever, like all these different things that they would come to me with. And, I'm running for vice president of the US and I'm going to lose. So there's not a lot I can do from a political standpoint, but I would try to connect them with the local activists in that area and say, hey, maybe they can help you. But I realized something walking away from that. You've got all these people that want to do something to spread liberty. And you've got all these people who need our help right now, not in some like hypothetical case. These are real people being acutely affected by government now. They need us now, not some distant utopian future where libertarians have taken over the world and we're leaving everyone alone, or whatever the catchphrase is. And I thought, what if we could find a way to connect all these people that want to be involved with all these people who need our involvement? And so in 2021, I started this sort of proof of concept. I said, before I'm going to go start a nonprofit, start asking for donations and all that, because this almost sounds like something an 8-year-old would come up with, like, well, why don't we just go and tell those people to back off and do the right thing? So I said, let's try it. Let's try like just getting public pressure on local officials to back off of these individual people and see what happens. We had no real budget. We had just a handful of people working with us, and we just found some causes online and glommed onto them. We had a 70% success rate with no real forward planning, and let's see how it works. We had a nearly 3/4 success rate. That was enough for me to get started. So in 2022, we officially launched. And since then, we have had a nearly 100% success rate, well over 90% success rate. And for the last 2 years, we haven't lost once.
So in what you're doing, are you taking advantage of, let's say, I'm sure you've met a huge number of people over the course of the campaign, but also just being around the movement. I'm sure you know lawyers who specialize in certain areas and activists who know everything there is to know about housing regulation, whatever. Is that kind of Rolodex partly how you're able to carry out some of these wins for people?
So it has certainly helped, especially the attorneys that are willing to work for free or at cost, like what their out-of-pocket costs are, when those people have to be actually represented in court. The vast majority of the work that we do is just in the court of public opinion. We find out about someone whose lives are being upended by their city council or their county council or their sheriff or some state agency or something like that. We put out content on social media and let the public know about it. We direct the public to a page on our website where in like 30 seconds time, they can press a couple clicks and send out emails to all the officials involved. There's already like pre-formatted emails that they just add their name to at the end and send it out. And by the time we've even gotten a few dozen or a couple hundred people to contact these officials, they've usually already backed off. And in some of the cases, we've had tens of thousands of people contact these officials. And we can get into specific examples of that. Yeah, no, it's gotten pretty intense on a few of these. And you've got to keep in mind, whether it's a city councilman or a small town mayor or a family court judge or CPS worker or a police officer or a sheriff, they're not used to getting contacted by anyone. Or maybe a city council member, there's a handful of people in their town that are complaining about a pothole or something like that. They're not used to like hundreds or thousands of people saying, hey, back off of this family and stop trying to take their house. And they're definitely not used to going online and seeing that they're being mentioned on social media for all the wrong reasons. And then they're definitely not used to dozens or hundreds of people showing up to their next council meeting demanding justice for, whatever family they're trying to uproot from their home. And usually long before we even have to meet them in person, they usually back off and completely capitulate to whatever we've been calling for them to do.
Hey, everybody, got a very important guy to introduce you to, the great Matthew Sercely. He's a tax attorney. He helps liberty-minded folks just like you keep more of your money and stay out of trouble with the IRS. He's an attorney, not a CPA, so your conversations with him are protected by attorney-client privilege. Whether you're running a business or doing a side hustle or flipping real estate, or you're just sick of handing over half your paycheck to fund wars, debt, and whatever other nonsense, Matthew helps you stay smart, compliant, and legally minimize what you owe. And let's be honest, if you've ever said taxation is theft, well, maybe it's time to stop just saying it and start acting like it. The state thrives on your compliance, your ignorance, and your confusion, and Matthew cuts through them to make sure you keep what you can. He helps you understand how the system works so you can stop funding it more than you have to. Go to www.agoristtaxadvice.com/woods. That's AGORIST, taxadvice.com/woods, and grab your free Agorist Tax Toolkit. It's full of powerful tools and templates you can use to get your business in order, track your expenses, and reduce how much the IRS takes from you without crossing any lines. Again, that's agoristtaxadvice.com/woods. Take the first step to keeping what's yours. So a good chunk of it involves publicizing the kind of stuff that most people would never find out about?
Almost all of it. And we've reached a point in some of our causes where we've actually had the public officials afterwards reach out to us and say, hey, how can we never have this happen to us again? Like, next time, can you just email us personally and let us know there's something you're upset about so we can back off? And so no, it's been wildly successful. And it has been based on the model of just, we thoroughly vet our causes. First of all, we want to make sure what we're putting out is 100% true. We don't go off half-cocked, especially on cases of like innocent parents being accused of abuse. We never want to inadvertently be helping anyone who's in the wrong on any of this stuff, but especially things like that. Once we vetted it, we get all the information together. We find out all the contact information of the officials that we're targeting, put the social media posts out. We send it out to our email list. We've got several thousand people on our email list. We put it out to all of our different contacts. And within a matter of hours, we're already getting reports back that, dozens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people have contacted them. And usually within 24 to 48 hours, we see serious motion from those officials, either just completely backing off or partially backing off and hoping that will get us off of them, which it doesn't. And then we just keep applying that pressure. And then we update through our social media. We update people on our victories and our progress on these different causes until we ultimately win.
Wow, that is really tremendous. So I would say, I would think that in a case like this, social media, and maybe if you have an email list to alert people to what's going on, are pretty important. Give me an example of what's the kind of thing, and understand, everybody, that not everything that we do that involves a victory is some giant federal case.
Yeah.
As Spike says, a lot of the ways in which ordinary people are put upon by government are happening right in their own neighborhoods or their own cities and below the radar. And so to have these victories is no small thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because it helps create a movement of people that are excited to do the next thing. And that's something libertarians often don't realize, because we're so guided by principle that ideas like, building a consensus around something and creating a movement, being a part of a winning effort, we understand them in the abstract, but they don't really move us. We're moved by principle. That's why libertarians will settle into this role of losing valiantly and be okay with it, because we're like, yeah, but we were right. Most people, that's not really what they're motivated by. They're motivated by being behind the right thing, which usually means the winning thing. So when we create this culture of winning and achieving feasible results and building upon it over time, we build a movement that ultimately can become a federal thing. I'm going to give you two small recent examples of local things that we were able to win on. And then I'll give you a third one that actually started local and is turning into a federal thing. So the first example I'll give is a lady named Rebecca Massey. She spoke. She is a married mother. She spoke at her city council meeting in Surprise, Arizona, and she was calling out the mayor and the city council for not secretly, but without the proper notification. They were just kind of quietly during city council voting for pay raises for everyone. And they're not supposed to do that in that city. There's supposed to be a disclosure period and debate and all of this other stuff that they weren't doing. So she called them out on it. And the mayor said, "You're not allowed to address us by name or title during public comment." She said, "That violates the First Amendment. I'm going to continue talking about this." So they had her arrested in front of her minor daughter, her 11-year-old daughter, who they left in a parking lot by herself at night and refused to allow anyone to call the father to come and pick her up. And thankfully, someone did call the father and she picked her up. But Rebecca was arrested, was not allowed to speak to an attorney. She was charged with a bunch of bogus charges. And while she was in jail, the mayor had a bunch of his friends write hit piece op-eds in the local paper. And the chief of police put out a video saying, what we did was perfect. It was perfectly well done. She resisted arrest, and that's why we arrested her. That's how they always dealt with things. They just railroaded people, and they expected her to, plead down to a lesser charge and agree never to come to a city council meeting or whatever. Instead, she reached out to us. We found out about it. We went public with it. We had the video of her being arrested so people could see exactly what happened. We got the body cam footage of when she was denied her ability to see an attorney. Long story short, once the public got involved, all of her charges were dropped. The mayor resigned, the city attorney resigned, the chief of police resigned, and now Rebecca is not only pursuing a lawsuit against the city, but she's now our Western regional organizer for You Are the Power. Another recent case, yeah, she's a great. We're very happy to have her on board. So another case in Cortland, New York. This was a recent, couple weeks ago. Cortland, New York is a town in upstate New York. They were going to introduce a law that would require disabled people to pay for a license to operate their wheelchairs.
That sounds odd.
And so it was very odd. And so it started as they were just going to regulate scooters and e-bikes or something like that. And then by the time they were done, it included wheelchairs and mobility aids. So we found out about it. We got the public involved. Within a matter of hours, they backed off on the entire proposal, not just the wheelchair part, but the whole thing. So you can still have your unregistered scooters in Cortland, New York as well. Here's the one that started local and has turned into a huge thing that will eventually reach federal level. We found out about a family called the Hernandez family, Matt and Tucky Hernandez and their children, Emma and Aria. They live in Forsyth County, Georgia. Emma has a chronic health condition that causes fractures and bruising. And so they didn't know this yet, but shortly after, a few weeks after she was born, she started having swelling in her legs and she was very fussy. So they took her to the children's hospital where they ran a bunch of tests and did x-rays. Once the test results came back, it showed that she had a chronic health condition that causes this type of stuff. But the x-rays showed a bunch of fractures. So instead of waiting for the test results to come back, they were on the spot accused of abuse. Emma and Aria were taken from them. And as a condition of their bond, Matt and Tucky were not allowed to communicate with each other, live together, or be within however many feet of each other. So overnight, they lost not only their daughters, but they lost contact with each other. They lost everything. They lost their entire family. So they then fought separately. They had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get access to their kids' medical records because the state didn't want to give them up. And then they found out why the state didn't want to give them up, because it showed very clearly that there was no sign of trauma. There was no sign of abuse. It was caused by this health condition. They went to medical experts who backed it up and said, yeah, she has this chronic health condition. This was not abuse. And so they said, oh, thank God, we're going to go to the family court and get this all straightened out. This is all just a big misunderstanding. Family court judge refuses to allow any of the medical evidence to be entered except for the opinion of the child abuse pediatrician who brought no paperwork, did not seem familiar with the case. And his one bit of evidence was, well, yeah, when you look at these types of fractures, statistically, they tend to come from abuse. And when the attorney asked for the source of that statistic, he went, you can find it on the internet. Based on that outstanding, compelling testimony and not allowing any of the other medical evidence to be entered into the books, the judge ordered non-reunification, which meant that Emma and Aria were never going to see their parents again, and they were going to be placed in an adoptive family. And then the Forsyth County DA would move forward with putting Matt and Tuckey, trying to put Matt and Tuckey in prison for the next 40 or so years. So we found out about the case, and we vetted it heavily because this was our first time dealing with a case like this. I was like, if there is any indication that these parents may have neglected or abused their kids, I'm not taking this case on. We vetted it for over 100 hours. All of the facts were there. It was actually worse than Matt and Tuckey remembered it. The arresting officer didn't even think they did anything wrong. The CPS workers didn't think they did anything wrong. Still took their kids though. And so we then went forward. We went forward with their story. The public exploded over it. Thousands and thousands of people contacted the judge and the CPS worker and everyone else that we told them to target. Very quickly, three things happened. The first thing was the public was outraged. The second thing was that, and they contacted all those officials. The second thing is that there was a complete 180 capitulation by the CPS agencies and the family court judge. The family court judge dropped the case and ordered reunification. The CPS agency backed off of their case and said there's no evidence here of abuse. The third thing that happened was families from all over the country came out of the woodwork with the exact same story. Their child had a chronic health condition. Some of them even knew that the child had a chronic health condition. They took them to a hospital or to a doctor. They were accused of abuse on the spot. They haven't seen their kids since. Some of them for years. Some of them already had lost them permanently to adoption. Some of them, it was just horrific nightmare stories that we heard. So we started going public with their cases as well. And the public went out and started attacking those officials as well. And those officials backed off and we started reuniting their families. It reached a point where the head of DFACS, which is the CPS agency in Georgia, her name's Candace Burrows. She reached out to us and said, I had no idea it was this bad. How do we fix this? So we gave her a list of immediate things that she needed to implement. She implemented them immediately. Those recommendations ended up becoming what was written as Ridge's Law, and it was passed in the legislature unanimously and signed into law back in May. Surrounded by it was signed by Governor Kemp, surrounded by many of the families that we had helped to reunite. For those who are watching this, who are wondering why are they doing this, it's because of money. Under Title 4E of the Social Security Act, the federal government pays CPS agencies every time they accuse someone of abuse. And so two things are happening. A bunch of innocent people are being accused of abuse, and a bunch of actual abusers are going free because the CPS agents are given such ridiculous quotas to have to fill. They don't have the time to look for actual abusers. Abusers don't take their abused kids to the children's hospital. They're trying to cover their tracks. So instead, they're just grabbing up as many innocent people as they can. Maybe they'll grab some guilty people in the process. And so abuse cases are going up. That just helps the CPS agencies because they can say, hey, look, even though we've grabbed all these kids from abusive parents, the number of abuse cases that we didn't catch has been going up. We need even more money. And so it all works out for these agencies. So what we're doing now is we're going state to state and talking with lawmakers. I actually just spoke 2 weeks ago in New Hampshire with lawmakers there about fixing the problem state by state. And as we're doing that, we're building the public momentum that we need to, at the federal level, get rid of Title 4E entirely, or at least tie it to something else, like state population size or something, so we can stop this decades-long tragedy of state-run child trafficking under the color of law. And all of that started with one family that we found out about.
The CPS is one of these things where I think the average person thinks, well, they're protecting children. And I personally think there is so much abuse going on there and so much harassment of families that haven't done anything wrong. But you wouldn't know that. Most people would never find that out until they themselves find themselves in the crosshairs. Now, you hinted at something that I think is a particular value of the service that you're providing, which is that you're vetting these particular cases.
Yeah.
There, I think, have been times when the libertarian world will get snookered by a story that they hear. Anytime I hear this couple was arrested for homeschooling their kids, I immediately say, no, they weren't. There's no chance of that. Homeschooling is legal in America. What's the real? And then I find out, well, they were living in the wilderness. The kids were feral. They leave that part of the story out. But if Spike Cohen tells me, I've looked into this is completely above board. The family is beyond reproach. This is a genuine case of institutional abuse. Well, then I'm on board and I'll do what I can.
If You Are the Power has gone forward with a case, it is because we have spent anywhere from 50 on the low end to over 300 hours vetting this. And when I say we, I mean a nationwide team of legal professionals, of medical professionals. We have doctors that actually help us build medical narratives for these children. Multiple activists that are going through all of the email threads and change. And there's oversight on each of these different steps. So it's not just one person looking at it. It's multiple people reviewing each of the steps and then coming up with their shared findings. If one person on that vetting team says, I'm not 100% sure of this, we don't go forward on it. There's actually been causes that have been brought to us where we were like 95% certain that nothing wrong was done. We didn't go forward with it. Now, in some cases, we would then behind the scenes, maybe line them up with an attorney that could help them, or send out, ourselves send out an email to the caseworker or whoever it is involved saying, hey, can you take a second look at this? So, because again, we still were pretty sure that they hadn't done anything wrong, but we don't go public unless it's we call it a Jackie Robinson. Like it has to be completely above reproach. It has to be like just completely above board. There is no sign of any possible abuse, neglect, or in any of these cases, if Rebecca Massey had come to us and it looked like, yeah, it wasn't just that she was speaking to the city council, there was also this and also that, we wouldn't have taken it on. We are very, if You Are the Power talks about a cause, you know that a lot of people have spent a lot of time looking at it, and that if anyone was not on board with moving forward on it based on the facts alone, we didn't move forward on it. I think that we have helped the Liberty Movement avoid a lot of landmines.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. What was the very first victory you guys had?
Gosh, I would say probably our first victory was actually before we were even founded, and it was only a partial victory. But it was enough there for us to say, okay, there's something here, because we got involved way too late in it. And if we had gotten involved earlier, we could have probably stopped it. There's a city right on the line on the Ohio River, on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River, called Covington, Kentucky. They had a privately owned convalescent home in the middle of downtown, right across from the city council. And the city council just happened to own all the other properties in that area. The city council and the city attorney, they owned all the properties there. And you had this eyesore of a convalescent home. It was all elderly, low-income people that were living in this privately run home. And they wanted to get rid of it and replace it with parking and a green space so that they could beautify the downtown core. And so they used eminent domain to take it. And we got involved, like literally they had already won their cases. They had already, it was going to happen. And we got involved, and our involvement helped delay the thing long enough and to get enough public pressure on it long enough that we were able to at least get the residents of that home. It bought time for the residents of that home to be put in other good housing accommodations, privately run housing accommodations, because up until then, they were all going to be put into this state-run facility that was basically a prison for old people who had done nothing wrong. And so it was only a minor victory, but I was shocked because we went into it knowing we were probably going to lose. Like they had already had all their wins, unless there was some massive, road to Damascus change of heart on the part of the city council members and the city attorney. There was nothing we were going to do. But we had that initial victory of at least buying them enough time and getting enough public pressure and enough public attention on them to get them the help they needed. And I said, if we could do that with this right off the bat, stumbling into this thing last minute, then imagine what else we can do. And we've just had strings of victories. We've gotten charges. I don't even know how many hundreds of charges dropped at this point. We've gotten body cam footage released that the state didn't want released. We've gotten sheriffs and chiefs of police and mayors and multiple other corrupt officials to resign across the country. We've gotten multiple families reunited. We've gotten eminent domain actions stopped. We've gotten all sorts of incredible stuff. I now have state officials reaching out to us. This is the new thing. I now have state level officials reaching out to me saying, hey, there's this thing we're trying to kill, but the rest of the administration wants it. Here's the details of it so you can go public with it and we can try to do something about it. So it's just been incredible what we've been able to do in such a short period of time. This is less than 3 years. Well, just over 3 years since we've been founded.
Friends, if you care about your liberty and your financial freedom, you need to hear this. From October 10th to 12th, my friend Mikkel Thorup, you know him, host of the Expat Money Show. He's been a guest on the Tom Woods Show several times. He even joined us on the Tom Woods Cruise this year. Well, Mikkel is bringing together top experts from around the world for the Expat Money Online Summit. and it's completely free to attend. You'll learn how to legally protect your wealth, secure second residencies and citizenships, reduce your tax burden, and own property abroad, all to safeguard your freedom. This year's focus is Latin America, where opportunity is booming. Argentina is shifting to free markets under Javier Milei. El Salvador is undergoing a radical transformation, and Panama and Paraguay are offering simple residency programs. A Plan B is no longer optional, it's essential. Reserve your free ticket at expatmoneysummit.com. That's expatmoneysummit.com. But that's exactly what I was going to ask you. What do you attribute this to?
Well, first and foremost, I attribute it to the Holy Spirit. My personal, You Are the Power is not a explicitly religious organization, but I don't think you have this kind of success without the will of God being on your side. I think God's providence is clearly on it, in my opinion anyway. I would say that the way that manifests itself is in the plan that we have, which is we start first by looking at the fact that every single person involved in this is not an abstraction. They're a person. The people we're trying to help are people. The people who are trying to harm them are also people. And these people probably don't think that they're monsters. They probably think that they're good people doing good things. And so we actually, in our reaching out to them, I say, targeting them, going after them, we actually desire reconciliation. We'll be okay with them just backing off for political expediency or resigning or whatever they feel like doing. We'd prefer that they joined us like Candace Gross did in Georgia. We would prefer that they join us and get on our side with this. And so the way we reach out to them is through a genuine desire for reconciliation, for them to realize they have the agency to do the right thing and to do the right thing so that we can thank them for it. I think the fact that we do the opposite of what libertarians usually do. And I'll try to break this down as quickly as possible. Libertarians tend to think principle first. So we start with our underlying principles, like, our ideas of private property rights, Austrian economics, decentralization, non-aggression, all these different ideas. These are our underlying principles. And then from there, that influences our thoughts on policy. And then we understand that our policies are right, so they'll be the best for people. So they're not an afterthought. It's just not our main focus. Our main focus is our principles and then the policies that come from that principle. Every other normal person on earth thinks the exact opposite. They think about people. And when they see something bad happening to people, they look for other people to explain to them what needs to be done. This is where the demagogues come in. Then from there, they go, okay, well, here's the policies I should support because the people that I have decided to trust have told me that this helps people like me. And so that works its way into the policy. And then some of them at some point might engage somewhat with the philosophy behind it. The vast majority of people will never really engage with a principle or philosophy in any real way in their entire natural lives. And that's very frustrating to us, but that's the reality of it. And so we focus on it that way. We don't tell them about this CPS agency that's doing all these terrible things and how Title 4E is causing all these horrible things and can cause children to lose parents to lose their children wrongfully. And that the principle behind this is that government is more often than not a bad way to accomplish it. We start with the family, the people. We say, these parents, these specific individual human beings lost their children. Here's why they lost their children. Here's the people who took their children from them. And in about 30 seconds, you can send emails out to everyone involved and tell them to give them their kids back, and we'll reunite them like we have so many others. Over time, as we get more and more families reunited, as we get more and more people involved in this ongoing effort, then we explain the policies behind it. Here is why they were even able to take their kids in the first place. Here was why they wanted to take their kids from them in the first place. And then that gets into ideas like changing or reforming Title 4E. And then as we're doing that, we talk with them about the underlying principle behind why we do everything we do. Because we believe that when people are treated and respected like individual human beings and aren't having things imposed on them, that we all live better lives. But that when things are imposed upon us, when we are robbed, when we are assaulted, when our children are taken from us, when our homes are taken from us, we are less better off. Our lives are worse as a result of that. So we do people, policy, principle, which is how most people are wired. And so I think that and many other things is the real secret to our success. We're talking to people the way that most people talk, and we're doing it from a desire for actually fixing this, not just railing and getting people upset, but actually fixing it and solving the underlying problem.
What are the specific things that somebody listening to this who would like to be part of this community that you've built to fight back against injustices like this? What are the specific things they can do to help?
Go to youarethepower.net and sign up right now. If you go, there's a big button when you first go to it. It says join us. You can become a member. We'd love to have you be a part of it. You will be at the tip of the spear of this thing. You will be among the first people to find out when we're moving on a cause before the rest of the public finds out. So you can be right at the beginning of it. That gets you connected with your regional organizer. And if your state has we're still building out our state organizer team. But if your state has a state organizer, it'll connect you with them as well. So you will be at the forefront of being involved in this. We also offer ongoing training and education to help you to become a better liberty activist and to understand the underlying ideas behind what we do, why we do, behind why we do what we do. I knew I said that wrong. All of that, you get to learn that as well. All of that comes with being a member. So if you go to youarethepower.net, you can become a member. If maybe you don't have as much time to give, but you have money you'd like to donate to the cause, we spend a lot of time with a lot of professionals vetting this. That's where the bulk of our money goes, is just the cost of vetting these causes and making sure they're legit. So if you go to youarethepower.net, there's a donate button there as well. And you can donate what you're able to there as well. If you want to do both, they're both there. So all roads lead to youarethepower.net. We'd love to have you be a part of it.
And I would presume that if you are the kind of person who has been a victim of injustice, that youarethepower.net will instruct them on how to tell their story to you?
Absolutely. So if you go to youarethepower.net/help, there's a form that you can fill out. Once you've filled out that form and give us the basic information that we need to get started, our cause coordination team will reach out to you to be able to find out more about it. And if there's something we can do to help your cause, whether it's publicly or behind the scenes, we will do so. I can't guarantee that we can take on every cause, but I can guarantee that we will do our best to help you as much as we can.
That's tremendous. Now, do you personally sift through every single one of these?
Initially, I was involved in the cause vetting. We have reached a scale where I simply can't do that.
Okay.
We've now reached the point where the head of the organization is essentially a glorified spokesperson. I'm traveling the country. I'm speaking at events about what we do at You Are the Power. I'm making connections and networking with other organizations to do common cause stuff together. I obviously keep communications with our biggest donors and biggest supporters and things like that. I'm involved at the 30,000 foot view of how things are being operated, but I have an incredible team around me. That's another great thing about this. So You Are the Power has a staff of 10, including me, and it has thousands of volunteers. And we are primarily driven. Much of the bulk of our work is done by the volunteers who are getting involved in helping because they just want to be a part of a winning effort to help people now and to use it as a means to spread liberty.
Do you attribute some of this to the notoriety you built up in the 2020 campaign, that you could reach this critical mass of people and be successful with something like this?
None of this would have happened if I hadn't run. Like that. First of all, that allowed me to make that connection that there were people who needed our help right now. They were coming to us asking for help. So first and foremost, that. Then the fact that the beginning network of activists and professionals that I met across the country during the campaign have been an incredible help towards building this and continuing to work on it. So yeah, I would say that it definitely, the formation of it was crucial that happened. At least in my life, it was crucial that happened for me to be able to start it. At this point, You Are the Power is bigger than anything I ever did myself, running for office or any of that other stuff. And an increasing number of people don't even know that I was the Libertarian VP candidate. An increasing number of the people that we work with the most closely aren't Libertarian. They're not in Libertarian circles. They aren't part of our little movement here. And so, it'll be funny when we're, working with a group of people and getting involved in stuff and then it'll come out, during the campaign, and they'll be like, "Oh, did you run for office?" And so, like, an increasing number of people that are involved in it don't even know who I am, or don't even know what I did before this. But the foundation of it would have never happened if I hadn't run. So for that and many other reasons, I will always be grateful to God for that incredible opportunity.
Wow, how about that? Do you have any further political ambitions, or is that chapter of your life closed?
I've learned not to rule anything out. If you had told me that I would start a web design company in my teens, or that I would run for vice president with Vermin Supreme, or then that I'd run for vice president with Joe Jorgensen, and then that I would start a national nonprofit, any of those times I would have said, I think you're talking about someone else. If you had told me that I would have given my life to Jesus last November, a couple of years ago, I would have told you must have been talking about someone else. So I've learned to remain open to possibilities of what's in the future. With that said, I don't really want to run for office ever again. And I think the only reason I would do so is if I thought that that could have more of an impact than what I'm already doing at You Are the Power. And as You Are the Power continues to grow, that possibility of me running for something having more and more of an impact that becomes more and more remote. So yeah, I don't think I will, but I haven't. I've learned never to say never to most things. So I wouldn't say never, but I'd be very surprised. And it's not something I particularly want to do. I like what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I completely understand and sympathize with that. So the website, once again, youarethepower.net, right?
Yes, youarethepower.net. We do have .com, but we got it years later, so it just forwards to the .net. So if you slip up and write .net, it'll still go, or .com, it still goes to the .net.
Okay. All right. So I'll also have that at tomwoods.com/2690, the show notes page. So we're going to leave that. We're not going to give you any other way to, we're not going to, if you want to find Spike Cohen on Twitter, that's easy to do. The only, The only action I'm going to give you is youarethepower.net. Anything else you'll figure out on your own, but youarethepower.net is where you should go right now. So Spike, thank you for, as I say, the pattern interrupt, the good news, hearing that, decent people are banding together to accomplish good things. We need to hear that. So thanks for doing it.
Thank you, Tom, and God bless you and Jenna.
Thank you very much, Spike. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Make yourself and those you love less vulnerable to the regime, both mentally and physically. Get more forbidden information at tomsfreebooks.com and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. See you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.